lie! You can't prove anything!
Nah, darling, this is the truth.
The lights went out just as I was trying to figure out why my wife's car wasn't in the driveway again. Third time this week, I stood there in our kitchen, holding a cold beer and staring at the darkness like it might give me answers about where Carla spent her evenings these days. Another business trip, I muttered to myself, mimicking her voice. Very important client meeting that could run late. My name's Jake Morrison, and I've been fixing other people's broken things for 20 years. Houses, mostly. Electrical work, plumbing, whatever needed doing in this decaying corner of New England where the old money families pretend their mansions aren't rotting from the inside out. Funny thing about being a contractor, you get real good at spotting when something's not wired right. And my marriage? That had been throwing sparks for months. I fumbled around for my phone's flashlight and made my way down to the basement. The circuit breaker looked fine, but something felt off. The air down there was different somehow, stale, like someone had been spending time in a place that was supposed to be empty. That's when I called Lenny. Leonard Kowalski and I went way back to our boxing days at Murphy's gym. He'd taken more hits to the head than was smart, but the man could wire a house blindfolded. More importantly, Lenny had a talent for finding things that weren't supposed to be found. "Jake, you miserable bastard," Lenny's voice crackled through my phone. "What's eating you now? Power's out. Need you to take a look at something. At 9 p.m. on a Tuesday? This better be good. Trust me, it will be." 30 minutes later, Lenny's beat-up van pulled into my driveway. He climbed out carrying his toolbox and a six-pack of beer, because that's how Lenny approached every job, prepared for the work and the aftermath. "So where's the lovely Carla tonight?" he asked as we headed down to the basement. "Business meeting. Very important." Lenny gave me a look. We'd known each other long enough that he could read the sarcasm dripping from my voice. "Right. Business meeting." He popped open the electrical panel and started poking around with his multimeter. "You know, Jake, I've been meaning to tell you something." "What's that?" "I was working on the Henderson place last week. Saw Carla's car at that new hotel downtown. The fancy one with the valet parking." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. "When was this?" "Thursday afternoon, around 2. She was with some guy in a suit. Looked real cozy." "Thursday, the day she told me she was in court all afternoon." Lenny's multimeter started beeping. He frowned and followed a wire along the basement wall, his flashlight beam dancing across the old stone foundation. "That's weird," he muttered. "What?" "This wire doesn't go where it's supposed to go." He traced it to the far corner of the basement behind the old furnace. "Jake, come look at this." I followed him over. Behind the furnace, hidden by shadows and 20 years of accumulated junk, was a section of the wall that didn't match the rest. Newer mortar. Different stones. "What the hell?" I breathed. Lenny ran his hands along the wall. "This is recent work, maybe 5, 6 months old. And this wire." He followed it right into the newer section. "Someone's been doing electrical work down here without telling you." My heart was pounding now. "Can you open it?" "Give me 10 minutes." Lenny went to work with a small sledgehammer, carefully chipping away at the mortar. The stones came loose easier than they should have, like whoever had built this wall had been planning to open it again. What we found behind that wall changed everything. It was a small room, maybe 4 feet by 6 feet, just big enough for someone to sit comfortably. And it was wired. Professional job, too. Power outlets, internet connection, even a small ventilation fan. But it was what was inside that made my blood run cold. A folding chair, a small table, and on that table, a laptop computer, a digital camera, and a stack of photographs. Photographs of my wife. My hands were shaking as I picked up the first picture. Carla, in our bedroom, wearing lingerie I'd never seen before. The angle was from inside our bedroom closet. Someone had been in my house, in my bedroom, taking pictures of my wife. The next photo made me sick. Carla and a man I didn't recognize, both naked, in my bed. My bed. The sheets I slept on every night. "Jesus Christ," Lenny whispered behind me. I kept flipping through the photos. Carla with the same man in different locations. Hotel rooms, the backseat of a car I didn't recognize. And then photos of Carla with a different man, younger, better looking. Someone I definitely didn't recognize. At the bottom of the stack was a burner phone. I turned it on with trembling fingers. The text messages that loaded made me want to put my fist through the wall. "Baby, Jake's working late again. Come over at 8. Can't wait to feel you inside me. Bring the good champagne. He's so clueless, thinks I'm at book club. LOL. The messages went back months, multiple conversations with multiple men. My wife hadn't just been cheating on me, she'd been running a goddamn operation. But the worst part? The last message sent just 2 hours ago. Setting up the camera in the basement room. This should give us everything we need for the divorce. Make sure you're rough with me. Bruises photograph better. I stared at that message until the words burned themselves into my brain. Then I looked around the hidden room again, the chair positioned to watch the stairs, the camera aimed at the basement entrance. They weren't just cheating on me. They were setting me up. Jake, Lenny said quietly, we need to call the police. I looked at him, and something must have shown on my face because he took a step back. No, I said. We don't. What do you mean? No. This is breaking and entering, invasion of privacy, conspiracy. This is war, I interrupted. And I just found out I've been fighting with blanks while they've been using live ammunition. I carefully put the photos back on the table exactly as I'd found them. Then I turned off the burner phone and placed it back in its spot. We're going to put this wall back exactly the way it was, I told Lenny. And then we're going to have a conversation about how good you are at electronic surveillance. Lenny stared at me for a long moment. Then a slow smile spread across his face. Jake Morrison, he said, I always knew you had it in you. Had what in me? The killer instinct. You were always too nice for your own good, too willing to take the hits and keep fighting fair. I looked back at the hidden room, thinking about my wife's text messages, about the photos, about months of lies and business meetings and being played for a fool. Well, I said, I guess it's time to stop fighting fair. As we worked to rebuild the wall, I felt something shifting inside me. The hurt and betrayal were still there, burning in my chest like acid, but underneath that, something else was growing. Something cold and calculating and patient. Carla thought she was so smart, thought she had me figured out. The dumb contractor husband who worked with his hands while she worked with her brilliant legal mind. She thought I was too stupid to catch on, too weak to fight back. She was about to learn just how wrong she was. By the time we finished rebuilding the wall, it looked exactly like it had before. No sign we'd ever been there. The wire Lenny had traced was reconnected, the power restored to whatever surveillance equipment was hidden behind those stones. So what's the plan? Lenny asked as we packed up his tools. I cracked open one of his beers and took a long drink. First, I need to know who I'm dealing with. How many men, who they are, what they do for work. Can you help me with that? I know a guy who knows a guy, private investigator type. Owes me a favor. Good. Second, I need to know exactly what kind of evidence they're planning to manufacture against me. That means we need to monitor their monitoring. Lenny's grin got wider. Now you're talking my language. And third, I said, finishing the beer in one long swallow, I need to decide just how much I want to hurt them. How much do you want to hurt them? I thought about Carla upstairs in our bed, probably texting one of her lovers right now, planning her next business meeting, laughing about how clueless her husband was. All of it, I said. I want to hurt them, all of it. Lenny nodded approvingly. That's the spirit. When do we start? We already have. They just don't know it yet. After Lenny left, I sat in my dark kitchen and tried to process what I'd learned. 20 years of marriage. 20 years of thinking I knew the woman sleeping next to me every night. 20 years of being wrong about everything. But you know what? I was good at learning from my mistakes, and I was even better at fixing things that were broken. My marriage was definitely broken, but maybe, just maybe, I could fix that too. Just not the way Carla was expecting. The next morning, I watched my wife get ready for work with new eyes. Every movement, every word, every casual lie took on a different meaning now that I knew what was really going on. I might be late again tonight, Carla said, adjusting her makeup in the bathroom mirror. The Patterson case is heating up. The Patterson case. I made a mental note to look that up later. That's fine, I said from the bedroom doorway. I've got some evening work lined up anyway. She glanced at me in the mirror. For just a second, I thought I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt? Fear? But then it was gone, replaced by her usual cool professionalism. What kind of work? Electrical job for the Hendersons. Lenny and I are rewiring their basement. It wasn't entirely a lie. I was definitely planning to do some rewiring. Carla finished with her lipstick and turned to face me. At 42, she was still beautiful. Tall, blonde, with the kind of sharp intelligence that could cut you if you weren't careful. I'd fallen in love with that intelligence 20 years ago. Now I was beginning to understand just how sharp it really was. "You know," she said, walking over to kiss my cheek, "we should plan a weekend away soon. Just the two of us. Things have been so busy lately." The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. Here she was, planning to frame me for domestic violence while simultaneously suggesting a romantic getaway. The woman I'd married was either a sociopath or an Oscar-worthy actress. "That sounds great," I managed. "Let me know when your schedule clears up." After she left for work, I called Lenny. "Your private investigator friend," I said. "How quickly can he work?" "Depends on what you need. Full background checks on everyone in my wife's life. Work colleagues, friends, anyone she might be involved with. And I need surveillance on her movements. Where she goes, who she meets, how long she stays. That's going to cost money, Jake." "How much?" "Couple thousand, probably. Maybe more if this gets complicated." I thought about the joint savings account Carla and I shared. The money we'd been putting aside for the kitchen renovation she kept talking about. "Do it," I said. "And Lenny, I want everything. Phone records, credit card statements, hotel receipts, everything." "You got it, boss. What about the basement situation?" "Tonight, after she leaves for her meeting." The day crawled by. I had a job replacing some rotted deck boards for Mrs. Chen on Maple Street, but my mind wasn't on the work. I kept thinking about those photographs, about the hidden room, about the text message planning to frame me. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Not just hurt angry, cold, calculating angry. The kind of anger that builds pressure over time until something has to give. Mrs. Chen brought me a sandwich around noon and we chatted about her grandson's baseball team. Normal conversation, normal day, but underneath it all I felt like I was watching someone else's life. The Jake Morrison who cared about Little League scores and deck repairs felt like a stranger to me now. That evening, Carla left the house at 7:30 sharp. "Don't wait up," she said, grabbing her purse and a small overnight bag. This could run very late. I watched her BMW pull out of the driveway, then immediately called Lenny. "She's mobile," I said. "Copy that. My guy's already on her. Black sedan, 2 cars back. She'll never spot him." "Good. How long until you get here?" 10 minutes. While I waited, I went down to the basement and stared at the rebuilt wall. Somewhere behind those stones, surveillance equipment was recording my every move. Probably motion activated. Probably uploading to a cloud server somewhere. Well, let's give them something to upload. When Lenny arrived, he brought a whole arsenal of electronic equipment. Cameras, microphones, signal detectors, and some devices I didn't recognize. "First things first," he said, setting up a tablet computer. "Let's see what we're dealing with." He ran some kind of scanning program that showed wireless signals in the area. The basement lit up like a Christmas tree. "Jesus," he whistled. "They've got you wired for sound and video. Professional grade stuff, too. This isn't some amateur hour operation. Can you hack it?" "Better than that. I can piggyback on their signal. Whatever they're recording, we'll be recording too. And I can add a few channels they don't know about." For the next 2 hours, Lenny worked his magic. He identified 3 hidden cameras in the basement, 2 audio recording devices, and a motion sensor that triggered the whole system. Then he installed his own equipment, carefully hidden and completely undetectable. "The beauty of this setup," he explained, "is that we're using their own system against them. They'll never know we're watching them watch us." "What about outside the basement?" "That's where this gets interesting." Lenny showed me his tablet screen. "I'm picking up signals from other parts of the house, too. Your bedroom, the kitchen, even the garage." My blood ran cold. "They've been recording everything?" "Looks like it. But here's the thing. Most of this equipment was installed recently, like within the last month. Whatever they're planning, they're in the final stages." The implications hit me like a sledgehammer. They hadn't just been cheating on me. They'd been documenting my entire life, looking for anything they could use against me in a divorce. Every private moment, every casual conversation, every time I'd gotten frustrated or angry about anything. "Can you get me copies of everything they've recorded?" Lenny's grin was pure predator. "Already working on it. Should have the first batch by tomorrow morning." Just then, his phone buzzed with a text message. "That's my surveillance guy," he said, reading the message. Your wife just checked into the Marriott downtown. Room 412. She's not alone. Who's with her? Well-dressed guy, early 30s, drives a silver Lexus. My guy got some photos. Lenny showed me the images on his phone. Carla walking into the hotel lobby with a man I'd never seen before. Tall, handsome, expensive suit. They looked comfortable together. Familiar. Want me to get more details on this guy? Everything, I said. Name, address, job, family situation. Everything. You got it? What about the wife? You want surveillance on the hotel room? I thought about that for a moment. Did I really want to see my wife in bed with another man? Did I need that kind of confirmation? No, I said finally. I've seen enough, but I want to know how long she stays, and I want to know if this is a regular thing. Consider it done. After Lenny left, I sat in my kitchen and tried to process everything I'd learned. The scope of the betrayal was staggering. This wasn't just an affair. It was a coordinated campaign to destroy my life. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated me. I'd spent 20 years in construction, learning how to solve problems, how to work with difficult materials, how to build something solid from nothing. And I'd learned something else, too. Sometimes you have to tear down the old structure before you can build something new. My phone rang around midnight. Carla. Hi, honey, she said, and I could hear the guilt in her voice trying to disguise itself as tiredness. I'm going to stay at the office tonight. This case is really demanding, and I want to be fresh for tomorrow's depositions. That's fine, I said. I'm pretty beat myself. Sleep well. I love you, she said. I love you too. The lies came so easily to both of us now. But mine had a purpose. Hers were just cruelty. After I hung up, I went down to the basement and stood in front of the hidden camera I knew was there. I looked directly into the lens and smiled. Hope you're getting all this, I said quietly, because the real show is about to begin. Then, I went upstairs and started planning. The next morning brought answers. Lenny's private investigator friend had worked through the night, and the results were illuminating. The man from the hotel was named Travis Kellerman, 34 years old, recently divorced, worked as a project manager at Carla's law firm. He lived in a condo downtown, drove the silver Lexus, and apparently had a weakness for expensive restaurants and married women. But Travis wasn't the only one. The investigation had uncovered evidence of at least 3 different affairs over the past 8 months. Different men, different locations, but all following the same pattern. Professional men, usually clients or colleagues, always discreet, always expensive. Your wife's got expensive tastes, Lenny said as we reviewed the files. Hotels, restaurants, gifts. She's been spending serious money on these relationships. My money, I said, looking at the credit card statements. She's been using our joint account to fund her affairs. Gets worse. Look at this. He showed me a series of emails between Carla and someone named Jennifer Walsh. Jennifer turned out to be Carla's best friend from law school, now working as a divorce attorney in Boston. The emails were a master class in marital destruction. The key is documentation, Jennifer had written. You need evidence of erratic behavior, anger issues, anything that suggests potential for violence. The surveillance equipment should give you plenty of material to work with. Carla's response made my stomach turn. Jake's been under a lot of stress lately. Work's been slow and he's been drinking more. Last night he got angry about something stupid and threw a beer bottle in the trash so hard it shattered. I made sure to get it on camera. I remembered that night. I'd been frustrated about a job that fell through, and yes, I'd thrown the bottle away harder than necessary, but the way Carla described it made me sound like a violent drunk. There's more, Lenny said grimly. Keep reading. The emails detailed a comprehensive plan to paint me as an abusive husband. They'd been documenting every moment of frustration, every raised voice, every sign of stress, and spinning them into evidence of domestic violence. The final email was dated 3 days ago. Everything's in place. Travis is going to provoke him this weekend, and we'll have it all on camera. After that, the restraining order should be easy to get. I stared at that email until the words blurred together. They weren't just planning to divorce me. They were planning to destroy my reputation, take my house, and probably have me arrested. Jake, Lenny said quietly, you okay? I looked up at him and I could see my own reflection in his eyes. I looked like a different person. Harder, colder. I'm perfect, I said. In fact, I think it's time we gave them exactly what they're asking for. What do you mean? They want to see Jake Morrison lose control? They want evidence of erratic behavior? I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the neighborhood where I'd lived for 20 years. Then that's exactly what they're going to get. That sounds dangerous, Jake. If they're recording everything, they are recording everything, which means they'll have a front row seat for the show. I turned back to Lenny and I was smiling. Not a happy smile, something much more dangerous. Tell me about Travis Kellerman, I said. Everything. Where he works, where he eats, where he drinks, where he works out. I want to know his routine better than he does. What are you planning? I'm planning to introduce myself properly. And then what? Then we're going to find out just how much pressure it takes to make someone break. Travis Kellerman worked out at Elite Fitness on Harbor Street every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 a.m. Creature of habit, according to Lenny's surveillance. Always the same routine. 30 minutes on the treadmill, 30 minutes with weights, protein shake at the juice bar, then off to work. I'd been watching him for a week now, learning his patterns. He was exactly what I'd expected from the photos. Tall, fit, expensive workout clothes. The kind of guy who spent more on his hair than I spent on groceries. He had that casual arrogance that comes from never having to fight for anything in your life. That was about to change. On Thursday morning, I was waiting in the parking lot when he arrived. I watched him park his silver Lexus in the same spot he always used. Far corner, away from other cars, where no one could accidentally ding his precious paint job. I waited until he was inside, then I made my move. The beauty of being a contractor is that you learn to improvise with whatever tools you have available. In this case, that meant a tire pressure gauge, a small screwdriver, and a raw shrimp I'd picked up from the grocery store. I let the air out of his rear tire slowly, just enough to make it noticeably low, but not completely flat. Then I used the screwdriver to scratch a small message into the dirt on his rear windshield. She's not worth it. The shrimp went into his exhaust pipe. By the time Travis came out of the gym, I was sitting in my truck across the parking lot, drinking coffee and reading the newspaper like any other early morning commuter. I watched him discover the tire first. He walked around the car twice, clearly confused about how it could have gone flat overnight in a secure parking lot. Then he saw the message on his windshield. Even from 50 yards away, I could see his face go pale. He looked around the parking lot nervously, but I was just another guy in work clothes reading the sports section. Nothing suspicious about that. Travis got out his phone and called someone, probably AAA. While he waited for help, he kept glancing around, clearly spooked. When he finally tried to start his car, the engine made a horrible grinding noise thanks to the shrimp in his exhaust. I finished my coffee, folded my newspaper, and drove away, but not before making sure Travis got a good look at my truck. The next phase of my plan required a more delicate touch. Carla's law firm, Brennan & Associates, occupied the top 3 floors of a downtown office building. Very prestigious, very expensive, very image-conscious. The kind of place where reputation was everything. I'd done some electrical work in that building 2 years ago, which meant I still had contacts among the maintenance staff. A guy named Pete who owed me a favor from when I'd helped him fix his brother's wiring problem off the books. "Jake Morrison," Pete said when I called him. "Haven't heard from you in ages. What can I do for you?" "I need a small favor, Pete. Nothing illegal, just a little information." "What kind of information?" "There's a guy named Travis Kellerman who works at Brennan & Associates. I need to know about his office setup, his schedule, who he works with." "This wouldn't have anything to do with your wife working there, would it?" Pete was sharper than he looked. "It might." "Say no more, I'll make some calls." Within 2 hours, Pete had given me a complete rundown of Travis's professional life. Corner office on the 15th floor, secretary named Margaret, usually in the office by 8:30, usually left around 6 unless he was working late with a client. More importantly, Pete had learned that Travis had been the subject of some office gossip lately, something about inappropriate relationships with colleagues. HR had apparently had a quiet word with him about maintaining professional boundaries. That gave me an idea. I spent the weekend putting together a care package for Travis. Nothing threatening, nothing that could be traced back to me. Just a few items that would help him understand his situation better. On Monday morning, I had Pete deliver an unmarked package to Travis's office. Inside were printouts of several hotel receipts, the same hotels where Travis had been meeting my wife. I'd gotten the receipts from Lenny's private investigator, but Travis wouldn't know that. Along with the receipts was a single sheet of paper with a message. "Your discretion is appreciated, but your services are no longer required." No signature, no return address, nothing that could be used as evidence. just enough to let Travis know that someone was watching him. The psychological warfare was just getting started. That afternoon, Lenny called with an update from his surveillance team. Travis left work early, he reported. Looked pretty shaken up. He drove straight to your wife's office and they had what looked like a very intense conversation in the parking garage. How intense? Lots of gesturing, lots of looking around like they thought someone was watching them, which, of course, someone was. Did they make any decisions? Hard to say, but Travis looked like he wanted to bolt. Your wife seemed to be talking him down from something. That evening, Carla came home earlier than usual. She was trying to act normal, but I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she kept checking her phone. How was work? I asked over dinner. Fine, she said quickly. Just the usual office drama. What kind of drama? Oh, personnel issues. Someone's been sending anonymous messages to staff members. Probably just a disgruntled employee. I nodded sympathetically. That's terrible. Any idea who's doing it? No, but I'm sure they'll figure it out soon enough. After dinner, Carla excused herself to make some phone calls. I went down to the basement, knowing that every word was being recorded by their surveillance system. I stood in front of the hidden camera and spoke directly to it. Having fun yet? I said quietly. Because this is just the warm-up. Then I went upstairs and started planning the next phase. The beauty of psychological warfare is that it's all about pressure points. Everyone has them. The things they're most afraid of. The vulnerabilities they try hardest to hide. The key is finding those pressure points and applying just enough pressure to make someone crack. For Travis, the pressure point was his professional reputation. He was young, ambitious, climbing the corporate ladder at a prestigious law firm. The last thing he needed was a scandal involving a married colleague. For Carla, it was control. She'd built her entire identity around being the smart one, the successful one, the one who was always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. She couldn't handle the idea that someone else was pulling the strings. Over the next week, I systematically attacked both pressure points. For Travis, I arranged a series of small humiliations. His car kept developing mysterious problems, flat tires, dead batteries, strange noises from the engine. His favorite lunch spot suddenly had no record of his standing reservation. His dry cleaner lost his expensive suits. Nothing major, nothing that couldn't be explained by bad luck. But enough to keep him constantly off balance, constantly looking over his shoulder. For Carla, I was more subtle. I started asking innocent questions about her work, her colleagues, her cases. Questions that let her know I was paying attention to details I'd never cared about before. How's that Patterson case going? I'd ask over breakfast. Fine, she'd say, but I could see the flicker of surprise in her eyes. Since when did Jake Morrison care about her legal work? And that project manager you mentioned, Travis something? How's he working out? The coffee cup trembled slightly in her hands. He's fine. Why do you ask? No reason. Just making conversation. But we both knew it wasn't just conversation. It was a message. I'm watching. I'm listening. I know more than you think I know. The pressure was building on both sides, and I could see the strain starting to show. Carla was sleeping poorly, checking her phone constantly, jumping at unexpected noises. Travis, according to Lenny's surveillance, had started taking different routes to work and looking over his shoulder in parking lots. They were scared, but they weren't broken yet. That was about to change. The opportunity came on a Thursday evening. Carla announced she was working late again, another client meeting that could run until midnight. By now, I knew exactly what that meant. But this time, instead of staying home and pretending to be oblivious, I decided to take a more active role in the evening's entertainment. I waited until Carla left. Then I called Lenny. Tonight's the night, I said. Are you ready for this? Been ready for weeks. What's the plan? I'm going to introduce myself to Travis properly, face to face. That's dangerous, Jake. If they're building a case against you, they're building a case based on the assumption that I'm weak and stupid. Time to show them how wrong they are. I drove downtown to the Marriott, the same hotel where Carla and Travis had been meeting for weeks. Lenny's surveillance had confirmed they were there, room 412. Same as always. I parked across the street and waited. At 10:30, Travis came down to the lobby bar. Apparently, this was part of their routine. He'd get a drink while Carla freshened up upstairs, gave them both plausible deniability if anyone saw them. I walked into the bar 5 minutes after Travis sat down. He was at a corner table, nursing a whiskey and checking his phone. He looked nervous, which was exactly how I wanted him. I ordered a beer at the bar and waited. After a few minutes, I walked over to his table. "Excuse me," I said politely. "Aren't you Travis Kellerman?" He looked up and I saw recognition flicker in his eyes. He'd seen my truck in the gym parking lot. He knew exactly who I was. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice carefully controlled. "Do we know each other?" "Not directly," I said, sitting down across from him without being invited. "But we have a mutual friend, Carla Morrison." The color drained from his face. "I think there's been some misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," I interrupted. "I know exactly what's going on here, Travis. The question is, what are we going to do about it?" He started to stand up, but I held up a hand. "Sit down," I said quietly. "We're going to have a conversation like civilized adults." Something in my voice made him sit back down. Good. He was learning. "Look," Travis said, trying to regain his composure. "I don't know what you think you know, but I know you've been sleeping with my wife for 3 months," I said calmly. "I know you've been meeting here every Thursday night. I know about the surveillance equipment in my house, and I know about the plan to frame me for domestic violence." Travis went completely white. I don't know what you're talking about." "Travis," I said, leaning forward slightly, "let me explain something to you. I've been a contractor for 20 years. You know what that means? It means I solve problems for a living. And right now, you're a problem. Are you threatening me?" "I'm educating you. See, you and my wife think you're very clever. You think you've got everything figured out, but you made one crucial mistake." "What's that?" I smiled, and I could see my reflection in his eyes. I looked like a predator. "You assumed I was weak." I stood up and dropped a 20 on the table for my beer. "Here's what's going to happen, Travis. You're going to walk away from my wife, tonight. You're going to end whatever sick game you two have been playing, and you're going to disappear from our lives. And if I don't, then you're going to find out just how creative a contractor can get when he puts his mind to it." I started to walk away, then turned back. "Oh, and Travis? Tell Carla I said hello. Tell her I'm looking forward to our next conversation." I left him sitting there, staring at his whiskey with shaking hands. The real show was just beginning. The confrontation with Travis had the desired effect. Within 24 hours, Lenny's surveillance team reported a dramatic shift in behavior patterns. Travis had called in sick to work Friday morning and spent the day at home with his curtains drawn. Carla had canceled her weekend plans and was making a lot of phone calls to her friend Jennifer in Boston. They were panicking, which meant they were about to make mistakes. I spent Friday morning at my regular job, replacing a water heater for the Hendersons, but my mind was on the next phase of my plan. The direct confrontation had been satisfying, but it was just the opening move. Now I needed to apply sustained pressure until something broke. That afternoon, Lenny called with an interesting development. "Your wife just made a very expensive phone call," he said. "She hired a private security firm to sweep your house for surveillance equipment." "When?" "Monday morning. Professional outfit, very discreet. They'll find our equipment for sure." "Good," I said. "Let them find it." "Good? Jake, if they find our cameras, they'll find exactly what I want them to find. Can you set up some obvious equipment, the kind that looks like amateur surveillance?" There was a pause while Lenny processed this. "You want them to think you're spying on them?" "I want them to think I'm an angry husband who's gotten suspicious and started recording everything. Let them find some cameras, some audio equipment, maybe some printed emails. Nothing too sophisticated. Nothing that suggests I know the full scope of what they're doing." "That's brilliant," Lenny said slowly. "They'll think they're one step ahead of you." "Exactly. While they're congratulating themselves on discovering my surveillance operation, they won't notice the real equipment." "What real equipment?" "The stuff you're going to install in Travis's condo and Jennifer's office." Lenny was quiet for a moment. "Jake, that's breaking and entering. That's serious federal crime territory. So is conspiracy to commit fraud, invasion of privacy, and about 6 other things they've been doing to me for months. The question is, are you in or out?" "I'm in, but we do this smart. Professional-grade equipment, no fingerprints, no traces, and we use what we find very carefully." "Agreed. How long do you need?" "Give me the weekend. I'll have everything in place by Monday." That evening, Carla came home with Chinese takeout and a bottle of wine. She was trying too hard to act normal, which told me everything I needed to know about her state of mind. "I thought we could have a quiet night in," she said, setting the food on the kitchen table. "Just the two of us." "That sounds great," I said. "We haven't talked much lately." "I know. I've been so busy with work." She poured herself a large glass of wine. "But I want to focus on us tonight." We ate dinner and made small talk about safe topics, the weather, the neighbors, a movie she wanted to see. But underneath the casual conversation, I could feel her studying me, trying to figure out how much I knew. After dinner, she suggested we watch a movie in the living room. As we settled on the couch, she curled up against me in a way she hadn't done in months. "Jake," she said softly, "I love you. You know that, right?" "Of course I know that. And if I ever did anything to hurt you, it would be because I was confused, not because I stopped loving you." I looked down at her, this woman I'd been married to for 20 years, and felt nothing but cold calculation. "What would you do to hurt me?" I asked. "Nothing, sometimes I worry that we're growing apart, that maybe we want different things." "What do you want, Carla?" She was quiet for a long time. "I want to be happy," she said finally. "I want to feel alive again." "And you don't feel alive with me?" "I didn't say that, but you meant it." She pulled away slightly. "Jake, I think we should talk about seeing a marriage counselor." "Why?" "Because I think we both have some things we need to work through." I almost laughed. She was setting up the narrative for the divorce, the concerned wife who tried to save the marriage, the stubborn husband who refused help. It would play well in front of a judge. "If you think it would help," I said. "I do. I'll make some calls on Monday." "That's fine. But Carla?" "Yes? If we're going to work on our marriage, we need to be completely honest with each other. No secrets, no lies, no hidden agendas." She stiffened slightly. "Of course." "Good, because I've been thinking lately about how much I don't know about your life. Your work, your friends, how you spend your time when you're not with me." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I've been taking you for granted, not paying attention to the details. That's going to change." I could see the fear creeping into her eyes. "Jake, you're scaring me a little." "Why would that scare you?" "Because you're acting different, like you're angry about something." I leaned closer to her, close enough that she could see my reflection in her eyes. "I'm not angry, Carla. I'm awake. For the first time in years, I'm completely awake." She excused herself shortly after that, claiming she was tired. I heard her on the phone in our bedroom, speaking in low, urgent tones. Probably calling Jennifer or Travis or both. Good. Let them plan. Let them think they were still in control. Monday morning brought the security sweep, just as Lenny had predicted. I made myself scarce, telling Carla I had a job across town that would keep me busy all day. Instead, I parked 3 blocks away and watched through binoculars as a van pulled up to our house. 3 men in business suits spent 4 hours going through every room with electronic detection equipment. They found exactly what I wanted them to find. Lenny had done a masterful job over the weekend. He'd planted obvious surveillance equipment in the bedroom, kitchen, and living room, the kind of setup an angry husband might install if he suspected his wife of cheating. Hidden cameras with blinking lights, audio recorders taped under tables, even a GPS tracker on Carla's car that was just visible enough to be discovered. But he'd also installed much more sophisticated equipment that the sweep would never detect. Micro cameras with no visible components, audio pickups that looked like electrical outlets, and most importantly, complete surveillance packages in both Travis's condo and Jennifer Walsh's Boston office. They found everything we wanted them to find, Lenny reported that afternoon. Your wife looked relieved when they showed her the equipment. She thinks she knows what she's dealing with now. What about the other installations? Perfect. Travis's place was easy. I went in through the balcony while he was at work. Jennifer's office was trickier, but I know a guy who does maintenance in that building. When will we start getting feeds? Already started. Want to see what your wife's been up to? We met at Lenny's workshop that evening to review the first day's recordings. What I saw made my blood boil. The security team had barely left our house before Carla was on the phone with Jennifer, laughing about my pathetic surveillance attempts. He actually put a GPS tracker on my car, Carla was saying, like I wouldn't notice a blinking box under my bumper. Men are so predictable, Jennifer replied. They always think they're smarter than they are. The question is, how do we use this to our advantage? Easy. Now we know he's suspicious. We can control what he finds. Give him just enough evidence to make him angry, but not enough to threaten the plan. What kind of evidence? Hotel receipts, maybe some suggestive text messages. Make him think Travis is just a fling, nothing serious. Then when he confronts you about it, you act guilty and ashamed. Promise to end it, go to counseling, the whole routine. And then? Then Travis provokes him into a physical confrontation. We get it all on camera, and you file for divorce with a restraining order. By the time the dust settles, you'll have the house, half his business, and a very generous settlement. What about Travis? He seemed pretty spooked after that conversation at the hotel. Travis will do what he's told if he wants to keep his job. I've got enough dirt on his expense account irregularities to keep him in line. I had to grip the edge of Lenny's workbench to keep my hands from shaking. They weren't just planning to destroy my marriage, they were planning to destroy my entire life. But they'd made one crucial error. They thought they were the only ones recording conversations. "Jake," Lenny said quietly, "you okay?" "I'm perfect," I said. "In fact, I think it's time we introduce some chaos into their perfect plan." "What do you have in mind? They want to control what I find? Let's give them something to find, but not what they're expecting." Over the next week, I began leaving carefully crafted evidence for Carla to discover. But instead of the hotel receipts and text messages she was expecting, I left evidence of my own investigation. Printed emails between Travis and other women, financial records showing his expensive lifestyle, background checks on Jennifer revealing her own history of questionable legal practices. I wanted Carla to realize that her co-conspirators weren't as reliable as she thought. The psychological pressure was having its effect. Carla was drinking more, sleeping less, and making increasingly frantic phone calls. Travis had started taking anti-anxiety medication and was making mistakes at work. Even Jennifer was showing signs of strain, according to the surveillance feeds from her office. But the real breakthrough came on Thursday evening. I was in the basement, ostensibly working on a plumbing project, when I heard Carla come home early from work. She went straight to the kitchen phone and called Travis. "We need to talk," she said without preamble. "Tonight." "Carla, I don't think that's a good idea. Jake's been what? Asking questions? Following you around? So what? That's exactly what we want." "No, it's not what I want. This whole thing has gotten out of hand." "Don't you dare get cold feet on me now, Travis. We're too close." "Close to what? Destroying an innocent man's life?" There was a long pause. "Since when do you care about Jake Morrison?" "Since I realized what kind of person I was becoming. Carla, I can't do this anymore." "You don't have a choice. Jennifer has enough evidence of your expense account fraud to have you arrested. You'll do what we agreed, or you'll go to prison." "Then I'll go to prison. At least I'll be able to live with myself." The line went dead. Carla had hung up on him. I smiled in the darkness of the basement. The alliance was cracking. Now it was time to shatter it completely. Travis's attack of conscience lasted exactly 18 hours. By Friday evening, he was back on board with the plan, probably after Jennifer reminded him about the federal penalties for embezzlement. But his moment of weakness had given me something valuable, confirmation that they were planning to provoke me into a physical confrontation. The beauty of knowing your enemy's plan is that you can turn it against them. I spent the weekend making preparations. If they wanted a confrontation, I'd give them one, just not the kind they were expecting. Monday morning, I called in sick to work and drove to the abandoned warehouse district by the harbor. The old Mackenzie textile building had been empty for 5 years, ever since the company moved their operations overseas. It was scheduled for demolition in the fall, which made it perfect for my purposes. I spent the day setting up what I privately called the theater. Lenny helped me install a sophisticated sound system, multiple cameras, and most importantly, a wireless broadcasting setup that could hijack the emergency alert system for the entire county. "You sure about this, Jake?" Lenny asked as we tested the equipment. "Once you pull this trigger, there's no going back." "There's already no going back," I said. "They made sure of that when they decided to frame me for domestic violence. What if something goes wrong? Then I go down swinging instead of going down like a sufferer." That evening, I put the final phase of my plan into motion. I sent identical text messages to Carla, Travis, and Jennifer. "I know everything. Meet me at the old Mackenzie building on Harbor Street at midnight. Come alone, or I release everything to the police, the Bar Association, and Channel 7 News." Then I sat back and waited for them to panic. They didn't disappoint. Within 30 minutes, my surveillance equipment was picking up frantic phone calls between all 3 conspirators. "He's bluffing," Jennifer kept saying. "He can't know everything." "What if he's not bluffing?" Travis countered. "What if he's been recording us this whole time?" "Then we stick to the plan," Carla said. "We go to the meeting, we get him to lose his temper, and we get it all on camera. One way or another, this ends tonight." At 11:30, I was waiting in the shadows of the warehouse when 3 cars pulled into the empty parking lot. Carla in her BMW, Travis in his Lexus, and Jennifer in a rented sedan with Massachusetts plates. They parked in a tight cluster and spent several minutes talking in the parking lot, probably coordinating their story. I could see Travis holding what looked like a small camera, and Jennifer had some kind of recording device. At exactly midnight, they walked into the warehouse. I had positioned spotlights to create a dramatic effect, a single circle of light in the center of the vast, empty space, surrounded by darkness. As they entered the light, I stepped out of the shadows. "Thank you all for coming," I said, my voice echoing in the empty building. "Jake," Carla said, trying to sound calm. "What is this about?" "This is about truth, Carla, something you've forgotten how to tell." "Look, if this is about Travis..." "This isn't about Travis," I interrupted. "This is about you. All of you." I walked closer to the circle of light, staying just at the edge where they could see me but couldn't make out my expression clearly. "For months, you've been playing a game with my life, recording my conversations, documenting my movements, planning to frame me for crimes I didn't commit. You thought you were so clever." "Jake, you're not thinking clearly," Jennifer said, stepping forward. "Why don't we all sit down and talk about this rationally?" "Rationally?" I laughed, and the sound echoed off the warehouse walls. "You want to talk rationally about conspiracy, fraud, and extortion?" "No one's committed any crimes here," Jennifer said in her lawyer voice. "Really?" I pulled out my phone and played a recording of her conversation with Carla about framing me for domestic violence. "What would you call that?" The color drained from her face. Travis looked like he was going to be sick. "How did you..." Carla started to say. "How did I what? Record your conversations? Install surveillance equipment? Turn your own plan against you?" I smiled. "You really thought I was that stupid, didn't you?" "Jake, please," Carla said, and for the first time I heard real fear in her voice. "We can work this out." "You're right," I said. "We can work this out. In fact, we're going to work it out right now, in front of the entire county." I pressed a button on my phone, and suddenly the warehouse was filled with sound. Audio recordings of their conversations, their planning sessions, their casual cruelty as they discussed destroying my life. But more importantly, I was broadcasting it all. "Ladies and gentlemen of Millfield County," my voice boomed through the warehouse speakers, "you're listening to a live broadcast from Jake Morrison. For the past 6 months, my wife and her associates have been conducting a criminal conspiracy to frame me for domestic violence. What you're about to hear is the truth about what happens when people think they're above the law." I played recording after recording. Carla laughing about my pathetic surveillance attempts, Jennifer coaching her on how to manufacture evidence of misuse, Travis discussing the best ways to provoke me into a violent reaction. "Stop this!" Jennifer demanded. "You're committing a federal crime by hijacking the emergency broadcast system. And you committed about 12 federal crimes by conspiring to frame an innocent man," I replied. "The difference is I'm not hiding what I've done." I could see Carla frantically trying to call someone on her phone, probably 911, but I'd installed signal jammers throughout the warehouse. No calls were getting out. "Here's what's going to happen," I announced, both to them and to the listening audience. "You're all going to confess, on camera, on the record, to everyone who's listening. You're going to tell the truth about what you've done." "We're not confessing to anything," Jennifer said. "Then you're going to prison for a very long time." I played another recording, this one of Jennifer discussing her plan to blackmail Travis with evidence of embezzlement. "That's extortion, Jennifer. Class B felony, 5 to 10 years. Travis was hyperventilating now. "I want to confess," he gasped. "I want to tell the truth." "Travis, shut up," Jennifer snapped. "No!" Travis turned to face the cameras I had positioned around the warehouse. "My name is Travis Kellerman, and I've been part of a conspiracy to frame Jake Morrison for domestic violence. It was Jennifer Walsh's idea. She planned the whole thing." "You idiot!" Jennifer snarled. "Do you have any idea what you've just done?" "I've told the truth," Travis said. "Something I should have done months ago." Carla was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "Jake, please, I'm your wife. We can fix this." "Fix this?" I stepped fully into the light, and for the first time, they could see my face clearly. "Carla, you planted surveillance equipment in our home. You recorded our most intimate moments. You planned to have me arrested for crimes I didn't commit. You were going to take everything I've worked for and destroy my reputation in the process." "I was confused," she sobbed. "I made mistakes. You made choices, I corrected. And now you're going to live with the consequences. I turned to address the cameras directly. To everyone listening, this is what justice looks like when the system fails. These three people thought they could destroy an innocent man's life and get away with it. They thought I was too weak, too stupid, too trusting to fight back. I paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. They were wrong. In the distance, I could hear sirens approaching. Someone had figured out how to override my signal jammers and call for help. "The police are coming," I announced, "and they're going to find three people who have confessed to multiple felonies, along with complete documentation of their crimes. The surveillance equipment they installed in my home, the recordings they made, the evidence they manufactured, it's all here, and it's all admissible in court." Jennifer made one last desperate attempt to regain control. "None of this is legal evidence," she said. "It was obtained without warrants, without due process." "Actually," I said, smiling, "it was all obtained with your own surveillance equipment. Every recording, every video, every piece of evidence was captured by the system you installed in my home. I just redirected the feeds." The sirens were getting closer. Red and blue lights were beginning to flicker through the warehouse windows. "You used my own house to spy on me," I continued. "So I used your own equipment to spy on you. Perfectly legal under the single-party consent laws of this state." As the police cars pulled into the parking lot, I made my final announcement to the county-wide audience. "This is Jake Morrison, signing off. To everyone who's been listening tonight, remember this. Sometimes the only way to get justice is to take it yourself. Sometimes the only way to stop a predator is to become something they never expected." I paused one last time. They thought they could wire me for failure. Turns out, I was the only one who knew where the switches were. The warehouse doors burst open and a dozen police officers flooded in, weapons drawn. I raised my hands and stepped away from the broadcast equipment. "Officers," I said calmly, "I'm Jake Morrison. These three people have just confessed to multiple felonies, and I have complete documentation of their crimes. I'm ready to make a full statement." As they handcuffed Carla, Travis, and Jennifer, I could see the defeat in their eyes. Their perfect plan had been turned inside out, their secrets exposed to the entire county, their lives destroyed by their own arrogance. Detective Harkness approached me as the other suspects were led away. "Mr. Morrison," he said, "you realize you're probably going to face charges for this stunt tonight?" "I know," I said, "but there'll be misdemeanor charges for the broadcast violation. What they're facing is federal conspiracy charges, extortion, fraud, and about 6 other felonies." Was it worth it? I watched Carla being loaded into a police car, her perfect composure finally shattered completely. 20 years of marriage, and it had come to this. "Detective," I said, "sometimes you have to burn down the old house before you can build something new." As the police cars drove away with their prisoners, I stood alone in the empty warehouse, surrounded by the equipment I'd used to expose the truth. The emergency broadcast was still running, playing their recorded confessions on an endless loop. By morning, the entire county would know the truth about Carla Morrison, Jennifer Walsh, and Travis Kellerman. Their careers were over, their reputations destroyed, their freedom forfeit. And me? I walked out of that warehouse a free man, not innocent. I'd committed crimes of my own that night, but free in a way I hadn't been in years. They'd tried to wire me for failure, but I'd rewired the entire game. In the end, that made all the difference. The end.